Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Triangulation is brought to you by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Triangulation, episode 69, recorded September 12th, 2012. Hans-Peter Brondmo. Triangulation is brought to you by Stamps.com. Use Stamps.com to buy and print real U.S. postage the instant you need it right from your desk. For our special offer, visit Stamps.com, click the radio microphone, and use the offer code Triangulation. It's time for Triangulation, the show where we get to talk to some of the best and most interesting people in the technology industry. I love this show. It's me, it used to be me and Tom Merritt. That was the three of Triangulation, but now it's me and you in the chat room. And our third leg of the stool, if you will, is today Hans-Peter Brondmo. I met Hans-Peter in Norway at the Nordic Light Festival. Yeah. It's great to see you again.
Good to see you.
Entrepreneur. In fact, his company, Plum, was sold to Nokia in, what, 2009? A few years ago.
3 years ago, 3 days ago.
3 years and 3 days ago. And unlike a lot of entrepreneurs who get sold to a big company, you stuck around.
Yep.
Why?
You know, I spent a couple of years taking the stuff we developed at Plum and kind of making it a platform, a social platform infrastructure at Nokia.
What was Plum?
It was we used to call it, Facebook for your family. It was a kind of Facebook groups before Facebook groups. It was a small group communications and sharing platform, which we've now integrated in with our location assets, so it becomes a way for people to have private conversations and share information where location is a big part of what they're doing.
Right.
So I did that, and then this great guy I work for, Michael Halber, who now runs our location business, came to me and said, you're good at the startup thing. Why don't you try to do some startups internally at Nokia?
That is what I found so interesting when we talked in Norway. The idea that a big company could have smaller startups inside it. And you said it's treated just like a startup in terms of results and funding.
In many ways. I mean, we kind of seed fund these things, right? We have a bunch of people who come up with ideas, and we give them 6 months to try to prove that there's something there, maybe develop some prototypes, a business case, etc. And then we try to pick a few of them and say, you can take it to the next level. Put them through the ringer and give them an A round. And one of my first projects just got an A round a couple of months ago. Very exciting project.
Now, what happens if they don't make it? You don't fire them; they just go off.
Well, that's kind of the beauty of it is you don't necessarily lose your job and out on the street if you don't make it. Sometimes they even do it alongside their main day job. But on the other hand, if you're a startup, you can become Instagram, or at least 12 people can become Instagram and make $1 billion. That's probably
so. Do they get to participate in the success of it? Financially?
Well, so, we don't talk too publicly about exactly how we structure it internally, but there are incentive mechanisms. Yeah,
that's really cool. I mean, Google certainly tries to do that. They try to stay entrepreneurial. It's very difficult. It's the innovative's dilemma. You get successful at something, and then you get frozen in stone because anything else will risk the business.
Yeah.
So, but especially in technology, a company has to keep moving to survive. Nokia is in a very challenging position right now. It was dominant as a cell phone company. And suddenly along comes Apple in 2007, and then now Google. And it's just become very challenging. And companies like RIM and Nokia that were the incumbents are now very challenged.
Yeah. Well, and Nokia, one of the things I like about the company, and also being Norwegian myself and growing up with Nokia tires on my dad's car.
Nokia tires?
Oh, yeah. Nokia was in the paper business.
They were a tire company?
In the rubber business.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We did tires, we did we did stereos, home electronics. Wow. And then only in the 80s and early 90s did the mobile phone thing really start happening.
Was it primarily Finnish, or was it Scandinavian?
Finnish.
It was Finnish.
Nokia's a Finnish company.
But did it have a Scandinavian
back
presence?
then, not really as
Just
a business. You could buy the products, but
right.
so snow tires, great snow tires from Nokia. So the DNA, the makeup of Nokia is one of reinvention, and that's kind of what I like about it as well. People are. The Finns wouldn't be alive if they weren't survivors, right? It's so cold up there. So, the whole DNA of the population of the people is to reinvent and to recreate. And, we're in the middle of kind of an incumbent cycle right now, right? Where of a challenger cycle, where, we're no longer the incumbent in the space, we're a challenger. And it's, super interesting, right? Because, I was listening to, the announcement, which I won't refer to, but that some people might have heard of this morning.
You could say the Apple. Well, maybe you're not allowed to.
I forgot the name of the company. But,
some company out in Cupertino announced something. I don't know.
And what was interesting to me is that I was sitting there reflecting on thinking, if you want to think different these days,
it's very hard.
You don't buy Apple.
Right.
If you think different, you buy Lumia.
Right. Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Well, of course, right? That's the different. Everybody's going out and getting all excited about, I can buy yet another Apple. And frankly, what I saw this morning was kind of incremental. It wasn't that exciting to me. And so if you really want to think different, go buy a yellow phone. Go buy a great Lumia with a phenomenal camera and kind of all the new stuff that we're offering.
But maybe smartphones have become like computers, kind of established. We're going to fix your mic here just a little bit. Have become kind of established like computers have, and it's harder to do something new and fresh and different because it's kind of a mainline business now. It's no longer, or is it, do you think, possible to become?
I think there's a lot of innovation still to happen in the space, no doubt. But I also think, back to kind of the work that I'm doing and the reason we're running these startups internally is that, we think that there's a huge amount of innovation, a huge amount of new stuff that can happen, which isn't necessarily even, the phone form factor. There's a whole new bunch of new types of devices, connected devices, smart devices, in all different kinds of form factors that we're looking at. Obviously, as a part of the location business, we have 90% penetration in the in-car navigation market. So 9 out of 10 cars run Nokia's content and software.
It's not Avimaps. It's Nokia owns. Is it Telenav or Navstar?
We bought Navtech several years ago.
Right.
Yeah. So our location platform, is the world's largest location platform by all measures.
People might see Navtech on their screen, but it's a Nokia.
Exactly.
Company. Yeah.
That's and so it's a part of our location business unit, location and commerce business unit.
Everybody's always said the Nokia maps are the best.
Yeah, they're great.
Incredible maps.
Global coverage, almost 200 countries where we have.
But even the
coverage
features like the 3D and all of that, they look great.
Great 3D, and it's also cool is if your phone actually goes offline, which occasionally it drops a line. The maps keep on working because it's a different technology. It's vector-based maps, so it can render a map whether you're in a tunnel or you're off in the woods. The maps render just fine.
So this is a challenge because Apple just kind of came out of nowhere. Android's taken up all the low-end market, and Nokia may have superior technology. You certainly got the best cameras in any phones out there. These maps probably are the best maps out there. I think Windows Phone 8 and Windows Phone 7, the Lumia is a fantastic phone.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get much respect. Why?
Well, I think we have to put it in perspective, right? Windows Phone is a challenger in a market, and it's a challenger that's actually growing faster than both iOS and Android did in the comparable place in their life cycle, right? So we've sold more devices, a year into it,
faster than
the others have, right? So in that regard, by those metrics, we're doing really well. By absolute metrics in terms of total market size, yeah, we've got a lot of catch up to do. But the good news is that there is some sentiment of looking for something a little bit new and fresh,
right?
And I think that again, if you want to think different today, go think Nokia. So I think the Lumias offer that, and to your point, I think WinPhone is a very fresh and exciting new approach.
Everybody agrees it is.
Yeah,
but there's the sense of it's too late.
Well, what Apple had $150 million left in the bank back in about a decade ago, right? And was it too late? It's never too late. Again, we used to make paper, right?
Right.
I mean, the company will. I feel very confident with the new management team, the leadership. I've been there for 3 years now. I've seen a lot of change,
right?
And with Elop at the helm, I think we've got a lot of change happening, and it's to me it's very exciting because it's much more fun to be kind of in a real battle where you're seeing the change and you can influence the change than necessarily kind of being on autopilot and just stamping out a new device every 15, 18 months.
So let's talk about location because that's your particular area. How does location change all this? We were talking on the previous show. We do a show about Google about mobile and how important mobile is. And the question came up, is the iPad mobile? Mark Zuckerberg said the iPad's not a mobile device. It is, in a way, just the next computer. Yeah. It's the phone that's mobile, and I guess GPSs are mobile. And
Yeah.
So is location and mobile, are those two sides of the same coin?
Well, I think location is a very important part of the mobile experience, right? It kind of is almost like a truism. And I think, if we look at what we're doing with WinPhone, our ambition there, and I think we're well on our way to achieving it, is to make it the most location-friendly mobile device, right? Ultimately, we'd like people to feel like they're a local everywhere they go, right? So if you're in New York City, you want to feel like a local. The WinPhone experience, powered by our location infrastructure, our location platform, our maps, our places infrastructure, all of the pieces you need to pull together, and then our suite of apps, for navigation, for discovery, for social activity and sharing, all of that stuff. City Lens, really cool app. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's basically this ability to kind of look around and have an augmented reality experience and discovery through your camera, on the phone. So you move it down like this. It's a map. You see a map. You move it up, and you see the real world through the lens. Very cool stuff. So this will basically give you the access to right where you are, all the information around you, and to your point, I don't carry an iPad with me in any different way than I carry a notebook. I actually don't carry an iPad. I carry a laptop and I carry a Lumia. Right? So that's kind of my mix.
Right. And you leave the laptop in the hotel room, and the Lumia is what you walk around with.
Yeah.
So you're working. Your entrepreneurial efforts at Nokia are really not for products that are coming out today or tomorrow. You're working in the future,
next generation. Yeah.
So what does that look like? How is that different?
Well, here's one thing I can say about it. I think that we are getting kind of attached to a certain form factor. There's there's the sort of small growing larger, medium, and large. Right, so you got the pads, which are basically kind of the medium form factor, and then I think you're going to see a lot of different variations on that theme. You're going to see different types of form factors, different types of experiences, and I
mean not just a phone, not just something that size.
Yeah, I think the sort of Honey, I Shrunk the Computer approach.
Which is really what a smartphone is.
Yeah, I mean, Android is really to me kind of about is a computer that was kind of it's a Linux computer on with a and even sort of the whole app metaphor thing. It was taken from if you think about, I had a 128K Mac in 1984, and I ordered it in February when it was first announced in 1984. Right, I loved it. It's a great machine, but it was really 20 years later, when the first iPhone was introduced, it was kind of exactly the same thing. It was closed. Remember that in the beginning? There was no apps. There was only the apps. It was small, and it had the original Mac had a mouse, which was a great paradigm for interaction. The new one had touch.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of the same thing repeated, done even better than the first time, and it's great. But I think there's a lot of room for new paradigms. And I think one of the things we're going to start seeing kind of in the Internet of Things vein is we're going to start seeing more special purpose devices that are brilliant at doing kind of one thing, but still being programmable, being smart, doing that one thing really well. So I think there's going to be, really, I mean, if you look at things like that Pebble watch, and some of these,
isn't that cool?
Very cool. Or you look at the Nest, the thermostat. I think these are great innovations where you have a dedicated device, clearly a smart device connected to the internet. Same with this little watch. It's connected to, in this case, your local phone, and it provides a whole bunch of really interesting functionality connected to your smartphone. But it's special
increasingly,
purpose.
These aren't phones. I mean, we use these less and less as phones, don't we? They really are computers in your pocket, and in fact, we could probably stop calling them phones and start. I mean, and they don't have to be tied to phones. It could be a thermostat. It could be.
But I think there will be. This is kind of like the battleship. But there's a whole armada of additional. So this is the aircraft carrier. It's the big sort of mothership that sits in the middle.
Do I want a bunch of devices? I mean,
I think you do.
I don't mind that.
I think you'll find that you do. Just like today you have this big thing. But what
the laptop he's talking about.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm pointing to the laptop here.
But thank you.
And you have a laptop. You have a smartphone. You might have an earpiece. I think
I got this fuel band
on.
You got
That's
the fuel band. Computer, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's location aware. It's movement aware. It knows what time it is.
Microcontroller. It uses your phone or your computer.
The phone is the battleship, isn't it? And that's part of the armada.
Exactly. So I think there's going to be a lot of speakers. Obviously, have you seen the Jambox?
Yeah.
really cool little device,
Love
right?
it.
And again, it's a Bluetooth connection, boom, it becomes a speakerphone, it becomes an extension. Now this is a speakerphone. You could ask, well, why do I need a speakerphone? Well, because it's better. It's better sound, it's more general purpose, it's specialized for speakerphone. So it has noise cancellation, it has a lot of things that you just can't put in a phone easily. And eventually the phone will catch up, but there'll always be, there'll be these special purpose, I think, devices that'll really be breaking the barriers. And so that's I think a really exciting area at large.
And they'd all be connected. Maybe they'd be connected to a hub that's your phone, but they might be connected to something else.
Yep.
And they'd be smart.
I
I keep waiting for medical devices, for medical monitoring and that kind of thing. I mean, we're talking about the Nike Fuel Band is an early version of such a thing.
Yeah. We've been looking at the medical space.
What if it could do blood chemistry, blood pressure,
exactly,
heart rate?
And it's not. We're not far away. There's a little startup I ran across a little while ago that has a little radar that can actually penetrate your skin. Supposedly in a
harmless way,
but so you can actually wear it and get an imprint of your heart. You can start seeing things in in terms of so we're not far away from the augmentation stuff being very powerful.
And then that raises the issue, we were talking about this also on Twig, of privacy. In California there's a privacy group that wants Google to have a privacy policy on its autonomous cars because well, they know where you are. People are becoming more and more aware of that, and are perhaps some people, not me so much, maybe not so much our audience, but some people are very nervous about the idea of these things knowing where we are and knowing a lot about what we do and monitoring us. Do you consider that? Do you worry about
Absolutely.
that?
I think I think the privacy the whole privacy space, we're just kind of on the cusp of it in terms of what it will mean to know, who and what you are. This is a little bit dating myself a little bit here, but about 12 years ago, I testified at a Senate hearing on privacy, and I presented a concept that I called I called it your electronic soul, and I said, as your digital footprint gets known, and as you have predictive technologies that can read it, etc., you end up having sort of this almost like the second self, which is this digital representation of who you are. So there's who you really are, and then it's your ghost.
Yeah,
exactly.
Your data ghost.
Your soul. And my statement basically said, look, ultimately this data asset that becomes your representation is an incredibly valuable asset, and there's three primary forces vying for access to that asset, right? Besides yourself wanting to control it, there's the shady characters in the deep dark corners of the internet, right? So the hackers and the crackers. There's the government wanting access to your personal information, and then there's corporate interests wanting access to your information. And yet we don't have a clear kind of asset model today that says, well, who owns and controls this asset?
We don't even know that we own it.
We don't. Yes, exactly. We don't today. Technically, legally, we don't. So I think the interesting opportunity.
I think everybody would assume that we own it, but it's not. There is no legal.
No, if you have information that you've deposited, sort of a representation of yourself that's in a database at some corporate.
Who owns that? Not you.
You don't own it. You might have rights when you enter into a privacy statement that says that you can have it deleted.
Right.
But what we really need is this is a little bit futuristic here, but what we really need is a representation where you say, look, I'm going to keep depositing my personal information with Amazon. But if Amazon doesn't give me a return on that deposit, I don't mean money, but I mean kind of service, I mean recommendations, I mean things I want, I will have the right to withdraw it and deposit it with the competition, or keep it.
That would be huge. Is that doable?
I think it is. I think it's a put the man on the moon kind of doable, but I think it's doable.
Before this decade is out, you will be able to get your data out of Facebook.
Don't you wish you'd heard that at the National Democratic or Republican convention?
That's exactly right, because I'm giving Facebook all this information. I'm giving Twitter all this information.
Yeah.
And basically, once it's there, it's theirs.
Yeah.
It may have come from me. They may even have language that says, "Oh, you have the right to blah blah blah." But ultimately, that's their database now. It's not my database anymore. Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if I could just pull it right out? And in Europe, they're fighting over this right to be forgotten. Right. But this would be better. Not forgotten, just I control who has that asset.
Yeah. Think of it as like, you go to a bank, you deposit your money. The bank doesn't give you a good interest on the money. You take it out and you put it to the other, give it to the other bank, and you have a diversified portfolio. You have a little bit of money there, some stock over here, maybe you own your house, and so. similarly, and that's an asset model, right? We own our financial assets, we control them, we have legal protections around them. I believe, and this is Hans Peter speaking, not necessarily Nokia speaking here, but the testimony that I made back then, and I worked on it a little bit later, it was really about this sort of that we need a framework, we need a way to think about personal information. And when you start looking at things like constantly tracking and monitoring where you are, et cetera, very valuable to the consumer if used right. But also,
we want to give that information
concerning if abused.
To Google and to Facebook, but we're concerned about what they might do with it, and we're concerned about loss of the control.
Yeah.
12 years later, we are no closer to that model. But what we are more aware of 12 years later is what a problem it is.
Yep.
I think that there's not a consumer alive now who doesn't understand that when they get that club card at the grocery store or they give information to Facebook, that it's being used in a way, using against them, and they've given up control of it completely.
Well, and think about things like DNA sequencing, right? Think about when
it's just beginning.
and then apply some predictive logic to that, and it's like, well, you've got an X% chance of developing the following illness in the next decade. What's the insurance company want to, what do they want to do with that, and what might that mean for the insurance company to access that without you maybe even knowing? So, I mean, there are large numbers of very complex and thorny issues, which at the next Democratic and Republican conventions, I'd like to hear
talk about it. Yeah,
exactly.
No kidding. I think we are becoming aware of it. We have a lot of conversations about the trade-off. For instance, and we're talking about tracking cookies a lot. The trade-off between, well, I want to use these free services, and they need to get some value in return. But at the same time, there's a lot of concern, and I don't dismiss it, completely legitimate concern about privacy, about but I want to control what they know about me.
And it is I said put the man on the moon, but it is a little bit like that. I mean, this is an infrastructure problem. This is a national infrastructure problem, and we need to build an infrastructure for people to be able to do this.
Legal framework? Where does this come from?
I think we do. I think we need an asset can only really be represented as an asset if there's a legal framework that supports it, that gives you rights to the asset and legal rights to the assets, et cetera. So I think ultimately we need a legal framework.
Yeah, I mean, our Constitution doesn't even have privacy in it, so we need to we have laws, but we need to perhaps become more clear about that. And unfortunately, the tension that goes on right now is between regulators who want to regulate this stuff and in some ways kill innovation through that regulation, and companies like Google and Facebook who want to innovate, and I think must ultimately recognize that in order for them to go forward, they need to have something in place.
Yeah, and I'll give you a great example of some of the one of the innovations we're doing at Nokia. We have an app now, our Drive app on the Lumia phones, on the Windows phone, which has this My Commute feature. And you could argue on the one hand that that's tracking where you're going every day. You can turn it off, in which case we don't do that.
Right.
But if you allow it to figure out where you're going, it'll make every morning when you get in your car, it'll say, today you want to avoid this particular road, and we'll give you a new alternative, because it just knows what your commute is. And so I think there's a lot of room for innovation. It's a small little feature that makes a huge difference if you're like me, commuting from San Francisco to Sunnyvale, 4 or 5 times a week. If you can save me 10 minutes per day on that commute, you saved me an hour a week.
Right.
That's 2 days in a year, 52 weeks in a year. You've saved me 2 days of my life.
Right.
That's meaningful time, right? And I can spend it with my family, with my friends, or sleeping 10 more minutes.
I take the sleeping myself. We're talking to Hans Peter Brondmo. He is your title is Director of Innovation.
I am head of innovation.
Head of innovation
in our location and commerce.
In location and commerce at Nokia Corporation. We're going to go to the chat room just a little bit. If you've got questions for Hans Peter, please ask away. We'll talk to him in some more in just a bit. But first, I want to tell you about a very good innovation that's been around for about 10 years called Stamps.com. This is so cool. It means you don't have to go to the post office anymore. You can print out legal U.S. postage using your computer, your printer, no special inks, no postage meter, just Stamps.com. In fact, it gets better than that, because you're not just printing stamps. You're printing right on the envelope. You're printing all the information you need. If you've got a QuickBooks database, you're printing your invoices, your business stuff from the QuickBooks database and the postage onto the envelope. If you're an eBay or an Amazon seller, this is awesome. It takes all the information about the buyer, prints out the mailing labels, prints out the postage. You even get a USB scale. It'll mail that package, so you're always using exactly the right postage. I want you to visit Stamps.com and try it out right now. Wait a minute. You see that $80 special offer? No, we can do better. Click the radio microphone that you heard about on a podcast and type triangulation. Look, it's already typed in there for you. Because we've typed it a few times. And press go. $80? No, it's a $110 bonus offer. $55 in free postage. A free digital scale. You just pay shipping and handling. $5 supply kit and a 4-week trial of Stamps.com. You don't even have to get up and mail the package. The mail carrier comes to you on their regular rounds or schedule free pickups. Stamps.com. They've got discounts you can't get at the post office. Up to 21% on express mail. 15% on priority mail. It's just great all around. You will save money with Stamps.com. Find out more. Go to Stamps.com. Click the microphone in the corner there and use the offer code, promo code, Triangulation. And we thank them so much for their support of Triangulation. Kingy wants to know about 4G. So LTE, has the rollout been slow in Europe compared to here?
You know, that's not a topic I know anything about. So
okay, so we'll
sorry,
leave that
I cannot address that
for another
there's some questions about the WinPhone 8 SDK that I saw.
You know, that's got to be driving you guys crazy. Well, because Microsoft has not put out that SDK. The Windows Phone 8 is coming out soon. In fact, the rumor, I don't know if you probably can't confirm it, is that we'll, by November, be seeing the 920.
I think what we're saying by end of year.
End of year.
I think that's the official.
But if you don't have any developers with an SDK, that's a problem. You guys must have the SDK.
Yeah. We've got great apps so that we're developing for it. So, you know, look, again, you know, when the first iPhone came out, it took quite a while for
there were no apps at all.
There were no apps at all,
6 months,
and they it took quite a while for that to happen and to mature.
Right.
And you know, I recognize that it's an issue. It's obviously, you know, you need to talk to Microsoft specifically about it to get the full story. But I think, you know, I think there should be no question in anybody's mind that Microsoft is more committed to developers than probably anybody else. They have a long history of it, so certainly they're quite aware and working incredibly hard.
And I think what it's interesting that you're saying is that it's not too late. I think there's definitely the perception, and it's because we're all very short-sighted. Tech journalists are very short-sighted. Oh no, it's over. We got Android, we got iPhone. Thanks anyway. We don't need you. But you're saying it's not over.
It's not over. And you know, just a little detail that people might not be aware of. Last quarter, we sold 84 million phones.
That's a few.
So you know, people.
How many smartphones though?
You know, I don't know exactly what the breakdown was.
You know what's frustrating? I love Nokia smartphones. The E71 was amazing.
Yeah.
I've owned Nokia phones for years, and you didn't make the carrier deals, and I was buying them unlocked, but most people aren't going to buy them unlocked.
Right.
And so you got a little bit behind in the smartphone market. But Symbian was amazing. Migo, I loved. I mean, you've done a lot of great stuff.
You know, it speaks to you know, the power of Nokia as an innovation machine, right? We've done a lot of innovation, and I think there's no doubt. And now in partnership with Microsoft for the smartphone market, we're redirecting a lot of our innovation. I saw a question here about software and why aren't we innovating more in software. We're actually doing a ton of interesting stuff in software. Our location platform maybe being the biggest example of that right now, but you know, I think you know, I think the innovation that we have done, like you said, with Migo, with our other phone OSs have been phenomenal. You know, and I take issue with the horrible OS thing. I think you know, people like to kind of rag on Microsoft because that's kind of what people do. But I really think that the Windows Phone, you know, 8 OS is a fresh OS. It's
right.
I mean, I obviously use it as my primary OS now, although you know, I try out all the different OSs and all the phones, and I honestly think it's the freshest, most interesting and innovative thing out there right now.
I would agree with you, and I think most tech journalists would agree with you. But there's the issue of apps. There's the issue of availability. Unfortunately, is the issue of carriers not. You know, you go into a Verizon store or an even an AT&T store, they're not going to push the Windows phone.
It depends on where you are in the world. If you're in Italy, you're actually seeing a huge pickup, and you know, so in Russia we're seeing great, and you know, many countries where you're seeing great pickup, and then other countries where it's just taking longer. And and I actually stopped by a store close by here just last week and went in just to get a feel for the thing, and I was discouraged. I asked the guy, and I saw
where's your Lumia?
Where's your Lumia? And he had one. But we didn't do a great enough job getting it out there. But I think, and then I started asking him questions, and he, he knew a little bit, but so I took a chance to educate him and show him what he really should be showing. So it's it's hand-to-hand combat, right? We're gonna be out there, and we're gonna be in. We have a great program where actually our employees go out into stores and encourage the stores to kind of really understand what it is they're selling and what they've got, and that's working. It's working every time that happens. We get great pickup, and the employees in the stores really enjoy it because they see, they see that we care, which we really do. We want to, we're going to be the comeback kid here.
Was there a little cheering when Apple beat Samsung in that lawsuit? Because one of the things that came out is that Microsoft had cross-licensed with Apple, and they'd said, we're not going to copy, and we're going to cross-license their patents. And what it made me feel like, oh, Windows Phone is safe. We're not going to see any lawsuits against Windows Phone. There must have been a little bit of cheering.
Look, we have a phenomenal IP portfolio, and
you're not worried.
Again, we've been doing this longer than anybody else.
Yeah.
We're not worried. We're looking at it, of course, observing it, but other than that, got no comment.
Yeah, it's nice to be a non-combatant in a war like that one, because it's a war of attrition. It's a war neither side's going to win. It's just ugly, and then wait till Google gets involved, and then it's just going to be a mess. Actually, that may be your big opportunity, frankly. If all these people are encumbered by each other and all the lawsuits, that's a huge opportunity. So let's talk some more about location, because I'm just fascinated by that. That has, clearly mobile is the future of computing.
Yeah.
I mean, people will probably always have some form of desktop and tablet and so forth, but mobile is where everything interesting is happening right now. There's just no question about it. And one of the things that makes mobile so interesting is the fact that you're somewhere,
yep.
and the device knows where you are.
Yeah, totally.
So tell me some more. For instance, I know Eric Schmidt said this was a little creepy. You'll be walking down the street and your phone will say you need a new pair of pants, and there's a good pair to be had right here. Are you talking about stuff like that?
Yeah, what was that Tom Cruise movie where where the advertisement on the wall?
Oh, I hate that stuff. Yeah, hey Tom Cruise or whatever. Yeah,
but. Look, I think there's been sort of the Starbucks coupon example, or
that's
variants thereof have been going on for a long time. But what's really interesting to me is that, your phone has rich context about, who you are, where you are, and what's around you.
Right.
And the combination of all of those, and who's around you as well, of course. The combination of all of those are huge. And I think there's enormous unlocked potential that it's yet not been unlocked in that space.
And I'm sure, driving your teams to be really creative.
Yeah, think about the sensors that exist in a phone already, right? You've got you mentioned the pedometer and the sort of motion sensor here. You got location, of course. You got motion sensors. You got gyros, so you can figure out orientation and speed. You got compass. And then a pretty strong computational platform, and then in the cloud you have we run this, we call it the NLP, the Nokia Location Platform, which is a rich set of services that allow you to both collect that information and make sense of it, and then provide feedback back to the local device. And I think if you look at it, if you look at the car, if you look at the mobile wearable, it's a kind of and again it's a wide open space. What I think starts getting interesting is when, one of the things we think about with CityLens, with our augmented reality, is where the phone can help you see what the eye can't see. So think about that. It's kind of like it becomes a little bit of sort of this radar vision where you can watch through the phone, and then all of a sudden you can see things that like X-ray vision. You can see things that, so you can, for example, one of the things we're doing is we're making models of cities by driving these little funny cars with the photo taking and something we call LiDAR.
So you're doing kind of street view stuff.
Oh yeah,
you're doing 3D modeling.
We're doing 3D modeling. So we're creating 3D models, and so our real goal.
Is that in Europe only, or is that in the U.S. too? Is it everywhere?
It's everywhere. Yeah, we're driving these cars around, in Europe and in the U.S.
This is your problem, Peter. You got to get the word out. Nobody
That's why
knows
I'm here to talk to you.
Stuff.
But here's what's cool about that, right? If you think about what happened, what Google did with the web is they kind of made the web computable, right? They made it searchable. And then, Facebook has kind of done that for people. What we're doing that is making the real world computable. So we're basically saying, look, we're going to have 3D models so that you can basically search, discover. If I look at something, I actually have a 3D model of that thing I'm looking at right there, and I have information about it. I might have historical information, and we're building those models, those 3D models of the word around you.
And
we're
you have an
building them
API. It's not just end users.
Exactly. That's what the Nokia location platform is all about.
You have a big API.
Yeah.
And now with Google starting to charge for Google Maps and stuff, I think there's probably a big opportunity for Nokia with its API. How much of what
Well, and keep in mind that our API, our location service, is increasingly powering Bing and the Microsoft Maps.
That's right.
It's powering Yahoo, right?
Yep.
It's available as an SDK for Amazon Kindle.
Oh, interesting.
So and of course on all the Windows phones, our API is available there. So just by and there's lots of other stuff in the wings that we can't talk about yet.
This is going to be the stealth map.
There's two robust map platforms out there, and the number one platform with global footprint is the Nokia platform.
Very interesting. How much of what you do? How do you balance between third-party independent software developers and stuff that you do in-house? Do you decide to do stuff in-house as examples, as reference? Do you think that maybe perhaps you guys understand better than anybody what to do with the API? How much of it do you say, okay, we want to find somebody to do the next Foursquare?
Look, as an innovation guy, I'm always humbled by the long tail, right? Like the amount of innovation that two guys can come up with in a garage.
It's amazing.
So clearly, we're not going to win if we don't make our APIs, our platform, our core services. We can do the industrial scale stuff, drive the cars through the street, fly the airplanes, do the satellites, all the stuff that costs hundreds of millions of dollars, and you need to build a content base and the services on top of that. But the cool, the next little Foursquare, the next little kind of cool application that's going to pop up somewhere, that's going to happen in the long tail somewhere. A couple of guys just graduated from some clever college in China, in Boston, and wherever it might be in the world, and in Helsinki for that matter, they're going to come up with that new idea.
How do you convince them that Nokia is the place to go?
Well, that's a good question, and clearly
it's a challenge.
For me, the bar that we're the bar we're discussing, and for me, the sort of the line I always toe is, if it's not brain dead simple from a business logic, and both from a business logic and from a technical standpoint, to use our APIs, we're losing. You have to, if you're thinking about this rationally, not if you're emotionally attached to one brand or the other, but if you're rationally thinking about what makes sense, we need to make sense relative to everybody that's out there, and that's our bar. And we're making great progress in meeting that bar.
And unfortunately, if you're an Apple or a Google, you may not have that. You may say, well, we're just the biggest, and they'll figure out how to use us. So one way to come onto a developer is say, look, this is going to make sense. It's easy. It's orthogonal. It's sane. But they're still going to ask the question, but where am I going to make the most money?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So you need to have a financial incentive model. It needs to be free at the outset, right? You need to be able to come in, and free is certainly the basic starting point for everything today. But also at some point, when you start building a very successful business, we expect you to become a customer and not a freeloader, right? But as far as the whole long tail, anybody who wants to run an experiment should be able to run that very easily, and that's where we've set our bar, and we're aggressively pursuing meeting that.
If you go to api.maps.nokia.com, you'll see it's a very rich set of features and things you can do. I didn't know about the LiDAR, though. That's really...
LiDAR is very cool. Creating, and also, you can use, there's sort of two techniques. There's photogrammetry and LiDAR, and they complement each other, right? Photogrammetry basically means extracting real 3D data and models from the photography, right? So when you're using street, sort of photography to capture this, and LiDAR is literally, it's a laser radar, right? It basically scans and creates huge amounts of data that we're collecting from these 3D models. And by combining the two and then overlaying the photography on top of the models as well and texture mapping it, you can do some. And then we do the top-down view also, both with LiDAR and photogrammetry.
It just seems like it's a, I guess it often is, but it's a positioning issue. It's getting the word out. It's letting people know it exists. I mean, Maps is just one of many, I'm sure, products, but Maps is something where Nokia really stands head and shoulders above.
The other thing is, that you think about with Maps is, for Maps to be interesting, they got to be fresh. And one of the things we again talk about a lot internally, we got some really interesting work on, is if you think of the map that Columbus used to cross the big ocean, to the extent he had a map, it didn't look that different from the maps we have today.
Right.
You know, so there hasn't been a whole lot of innovation on the map itself. It's kind of this, you know, thing with lines on it, etc. Yeah. And sometimes it's overcrowded. There's too much information on it, and you can't find your way. And other times, I think there's, you know, a ton of innovation that can happen in the models and how we interact with maps, how maps become much more live, how they come alive and become fresh and interesting and live. So there's a ton of interesting work and opportunity there, both for the developers and also for Nokia to not just be kind of a static, dull paper map that happens to be on your computer and sort of a digitized map essentially, but to become a very live, highly scalable and fresh, you know, fresh map.
Do you think it's sufficient for? I mean, if you had, is it possible for a killer app to change everything? If you had the killer app on a Lumia 920. Could it just change everything? People say, I have to have that phone.
You know, so this is giving me an opportunity to switch to one of my other favorite topics, which is photography.
Yes.
Right? And
that's
so,
how we met at Nordic Light.
Exactly. You know, we're both photo buffs. And I think, and I use this as a bridge to photography because I think that there are things you can do both with the hardware and the software, of course. But look at what happened with Instagram. Everybody loves to to point to them as a great big success, and they were a huge success, and they're growing still like weeds. But I had a great little anecdote. A friend of mine a few months ago told me the story where his daughter, I think she's 13 or 14 years old, was walking around one day, you know, downtown San Francisco, and she left her smartphone at home. And so she kept walking around, and she kept looking at things, and she kept doing this. And then she said, Insta. Insta. And she saw the world through. So
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, but you know, I actually think it's good because people are seeing the world in a different way. You know, these kids are learning to look at light. They're learning to look at, you know, capturing these moments.
Everything.
And they're framing everything and saying, oh, that's interesting. It's, you know, it's an artistic expression. It's a way to sort of see more. So back to your question, can an app change everything? I think that certain things can really change the bar. And I got to pull up my red phone here, right?
This thing is amazing. This is the 41 megapixel.
41 megapixels. And, you know, some people look at this and say,
the original PureView
yeah, this
phone.
is the...
What is it, 80?
This is called the PureView 808.
808.
Yeah. So this has the... And we just released another PureView. PureView is, you know, really kind of a catch-all for our great imaging technology.
I was a little disappointed because I got all excited when I heard the 820 had PureView. I thought, 41 megapixels, here I come. But it's not.
But you know what it has, though? It has optical image stabilization.
Which is interesting.
In a form
it's got
factor,
little springs on
it's like, you know, I'm going to have a blue and a red. So it's about this thick.
Yeah.
And it has optical image stabilization. So that means that, you know, if you're holding it in the dark, instead of getting, you know, you can hold it really still and even more still because, you know, you have optical image stabilization in there. So the low light performance is great. If you're filming videos, you know, the shakiness goes away.
Wow.
And it's in this tiny little package. So, you know, people aren't quite capturing that yet, but the optical image stabilization is going to change the way these pictures work. So I think stuff like that, I
agree.
You know,
that
can
could change
really
everything.
change it.
Yeah.
And what people don't fully understand is, you know, 41 megapixel. If you took a picture that big off of this phone, you know, it fills up your computer or the cloud or whatever you're using pretty quickly. And you don't need 41 megapixels in order to create a great picture for viewing on the web. But what it gives you is a huge amount of flexibility around, like you get zoom without a lens. You get lossless zoom just using digital
because
zoom.
You have enough pixels.
Because you have enough pixels.
And
so
that's one of the issues. It's why an iPhone can't really become a point and shoot because it's too thin.
Yeah.
And you can't zoom.
Exactly.
But you can if you have enough of a
with
sensor.
This, plus computational techniques, our sort of filtering algorithms, our oversampling, and the amount of light you can get into one. There's a bunch of stuff that took these guys 5 years to develop the sensor. And it's a huge amount of super exciting technology that'll allow and unlock. And then when you combine that with the new lens framework in Windows Phone 8, where you can basically write little apps that are lenses. They call them lenses.
Oh, neat.
So you go into the camera and you install a lens, and it does something really cool.
Right.
So you combine these things. I actually think we've got, you know, that plus, of course, the location assets. So all these pictures, they live in space, right? They live in the real world.
Right.
You have their orientation, everything else. You can map them, you know, put them on a map, put them in a 3D model, map them to a texture. So with all of that, I think we're getting to a point where there's something very exciting happening that, you know, you simply, you know, haven't seen before. And so, yes, I think there are single points like that, and I happen to think, you know,
photography might be one of them.
Might be one of those where you're going to see kind of a lot of people making a choice saying, gosh, you know, Nokia has 100,000 apps for their phones. how many can you install on a phone, right?
Doesn't matter, yeah.
At some point, you're getting diminishing returns. I'm not, I think apps are important. I'm not downplaying that, but we've grown from 7,000 to 100,000 in just under a year.
Now that's Windows Phone 7, but 8 will run Windows Phone 7 apps.
Yeah.
And then we got to get. By the way, I'm just playing with the 3D plugin on the Nokia Maps.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
I mean, this stuff that Google's now doing this. There's your house. Apple's now doing. But this, you've been doing this for a while. You were the first to really do this. It's just truly amazing. This is map data.
Yeah, this is real time. So this is rendering real time, and we now this is with the plugin. But our latest release of this actually uses WebGL and does this stuff natively in the browser.
Wow, that's cool.
So you can just,
That's
and
really
increasingly that's what all browsers are going to support, WebGL. So you'll be able to render these. But these are real 3D models. You can actually dive right down and fly in it, and so it's very cool.
So I think really at this point it's a question. I mean, you've got a platform that I think is a very competent platform, certainly as good as anything out there. And I think some would make the argument a little bit more modern feeling, a little bit certainly snappy and lightweight. That's Windows Phone 8.
Yep.
You've got great hardware. I mean, the Lumia is a gorgeous phone.
Yep.
Absolutely gorgeous phone. You've got these cameras. You've got these maps. It's really now a question of getting the word out.
Yep. It's a lot of it's block and tackle, and then I think we're working hard on
fundamentals,
on the fundamentals, on getting I think we have the best industrial designers, the best guys.
I think
the materials and also the materials we're using. There's some I've seen some of the stuff we're also doing kind of in more researchy stuff. Super cool material stuff happening. Next generation there. If you look at the 920, the screen kind of just bends around the corner too. You're starting to see these things fold around the corner. It gives you this it's almost like floating in space. It's really beautiful.
Screen.
And by the way, guess what? It comes from Finland. So what do you have to do? Be able to do?
What?
You have to be able to have your gloves on while you use it.
How do they do that? It's not capacitive?
They've figured out basically how to use a regular glove and still be able to use the phone.
That's actually great.
And oh, by the way, the other thing is Apple made a lot of noise today about their new plug, right? It's smaller.
Right.
Well, with the Nokia, you don't need a plug.
I love the inductive.
You just drop it right down in inductive charging. You just drop it on a pad, it just charges.
It's fantastic.
You don't even have to plug it in.
I want that pillow. I want the fat pillow.
Exactly. And they even have a speaker, actually. You can drop it on a speaker. And
I saw that.
Have you seen that little helicopter landing pad thing?
It's a JBL. That's really neat.
Yeah.
They just put it on the speaker. It's charging, and it also is the speaker.
Yeah, and when you get close, it has this little helicopter landing pad thing, so it kind of goes to show you where it landed, and you drop it down. Very cool. So stuff like that. You add these things up one after a time, and it starts becoming. I think it's the think different again. It's like everybody else is kind of just marching along, milking the cash cows, and we're through the hand we're currently dealt. We're really, I think, thinking different in a whole bunch of different areas.
And it speaks to exactly what you're doing with the innovation and with getting a more entrepreneurial spirit internally, so that that innovation can happen internally as well. Because I think that it's a handful of these little things that transform everybody's opinion.
Yep.
And suddenly you're the darling once again.
I don't think it takes much to sort of really start breaking through and getting people's attention and saying, "Oh, wow, we really got to pay attention here."
Yeah.
I've been very heartened by just how much in a very short period of time, how much it used to be Android and iPhone was kind of the only conversation,
right?
And just I'd say in the last months, 2, 3, 4 months, nobody now writes something without saying it's now WinPhone.
Yeah, it's often regretful.
Android.
It's often. And WinPhone, which is great, but it's just not getting the traction it deserves, kind of a.
But again, keep in mind that at this point in their lifespan, the other phone platforms were behind us. Right. So we're nobody comes out of the gate and just instantly lives everywhere. Right. It's hand-to-hand combat.
And if we've learned anything, it's foolish to think it's over. It's never
not
over.
It's only I don't care who's singing. It's not over.
By the way, I'm distracting myself by going up the road to Highway 101, driving to Petaluma from San Francisco.
Exactly. Let's see if we can look in the window over here.
I just think this is so cool. And is this mapping data everywhere? Because I just wandered off the map.
Yeah, no, the coverage is not global yet, but we have huge ambitions. Actually, partnering closely with Microsoft on a bunch of this stuff as well. We have huge ambitions to create very broad coverage for that.
Somebody asked, and I think that this probably predates your time at Nokia. If people at Nokia, Miss Ericsson is an arch rival. the fight in between the Finnish phone giants. Do you think
that? What was that again?
Does the people at Nokia miss having Ericsson to fight?
Oh,
that's still around, aren't they? Not really. No. Good old simple times, says Beatmaster. Well, it's really great to catch up with you again. I hear that you're going back to Norway next year for Nordic Light.
Oh yeah. I'll be. I'm actually on their advisory committee this year, and we're thinking about some really exciting new things to do up there.
Cool.
Which stay tuned on that one because and we'll certainly talk to you about it as well.
We should talk because that was so much fun, and Kristiansand is a really great place for a festival of any kind, not just.
Well, I don't know if you saw the little blog post I wrote on my blog brondmo.com, but it was so great. Bruce Davidson, Marilyn Mark.
Yeah.
I mean, to hang out with these legends, right? These guys who basically kind of have been inventing the art for the last 50 years. And of course, now also seeing that in the context of these new things that are happening.
Right.
And, a lot of it driven by the mobile phones, of course.
Right.
But photography. The interesting thing to me is that even the camera market continues to be a huge market with growth and interesting movement, right? So people, I heard a statistic recently that in 2012, more pictures will be taken than the entire history of photography. And the first picture was taken in 1827.
I think that's right.
So in 185 years, this year, more pictures will be taken.
I think that's absolutely right.
We're at this clear, hockey stick point in the growth curve,
right.
and I think it's really exciting what's happening.
Well, it's great to see you again, and we'll maybe see you in Kristiansand.
Look forward to it
in the spring. Hans-Peter Brondmo, and your blog brondmo.com.
Yep.
If people want to read more, and I look for. I think it's pretty safe to say that whether you use an Android phone or an iPhone, or as I do both, that everybody's rooting for Nokia and Windows. I'm rooting for Windows Phone 8. I really think the competition is great for everybody, and I think it's such a fresh look at what a mobile device can be that I think I'm really rooting for it. So when that 920 comes out, I'm going to be in line at AT&T, and I'm going to pick one up sometime later this year.
Yep.
Maybe sooner than later, I hope. We do triangulation, when we don't have Apple events, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesdays. I hope you'll tune in live. We really appreciate it. As you can see, the chat room is a huge help to me, posing questions to our guests. But if you miss it, we do an on-demand version as well at twit.tv/TRI. This show will be up there along with all the previous 68 shows just in a few minutes. twit.tv/TRI. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Triangulation.